Today in Final Fantasy, we get a card that just might be the new best mono blue ram spell and so much more. Let's break it down. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another daily dose of Final Fantasy spoilers. So we don't have a huge day today, but we still have some super exciting cards to talk about, which means we should probably jump right into it, start talking spicy new Final Fantasy cards. Before we do, a couple of quick reminders. First, if you need any of these cards, you can pre-order them from our sponsor Card Kingdom over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish. Second, to keep up on all the latest previews throughout the day, you should head on over to MTGpreviews.com. Anyway, let's talk some Final Fantasy. First up today, we get a new black rare in Jecht Reluctant Guardian, which flips into Vraska's Final Eon. So the front side, a 4-mana 4/3 with Menace. It's a legendary human warrior. Says when it deals combat damage to a player, you can exile it, return it to the battlefield transformed as Vraska's Final Eon. So this is a 7/7 Saga Nightmare. First two lore counters, each player discards a card, you draw a card. Last lore counter, each opponent sacrifices 2 creatures of their choice. So essentially, you start off as kind of an underpowered 4-drop that if you get in a hit with it, turns into a pretty sweet saga, but one that only sticks around for a couple of turns. So I think the biggest issue I see with this card is just based on stats, it's kind of below the curve. If you're paying 4 mana for a threatened standard, you really want more than a 3/4 menace, and then to actually flip into the saga, you need it to lose summoning sickness, you need to get in an attack, you need to dodge removal. The saga side is pretty good. You end up getting a draw 2, your opponents each discard a card, and then eventually your opponent loses 2 creatures, although it is worth mentioning, like most of these saga creatures, you're only going to get in 1 attack with this card, because Jecht flips when it deals combat damage. You're going to flip it around post-combat, which means you only really get to attack on the turn with the second lore counter, because that's going to sacrifice itself before you get to combat with the third lore counter. So I think, just based on rate, this card probably isn't good enough, although I do like the saga side of this card. If you think about what you get from the saga side, you essentially get 2 disinformation campaigns and then a barter in blood that only hits your opponents, which is actually pretty powerful. If you think about it, that's like I don't even know, like a 6-for-1 or something. So if you actually ride all the way through the saga side, the reward is pretty high. The question is it actually going to be worth playing this underpowered 4-drop that doesn't do anything right away, that needs to get in an attack to actually flip into the saga side? And my guess is it's probably just too much work for competitive standard decks. When you consider that we have Archfiend to the Dross, which is just massive, Sheoldred, which we've seen winning games for years now, and then even some 4-drops that don't really see play anymore, like Hostile Investigator, same stats as Jecht, but it does something when it enters. Your opponent immediately discards a card. You're going to immediately make that clue token, or Scavenger Regent we've seen a little bit on the fringes, but if these cards are kind of not good enough to see play, it makes me wonder if Jecht is going to be good enough to see play. It is worth mentioning, this is another card that works with Moon Mist, which is probably going to be a funny, like, Modern Against the Odds deck or Commander deck, but any of these flip humans, really good with Moon Mist, because you just get their saga side or their backside, whatever it may be, right away for just 2 mana. So that does seem like a fun way to build around Jecht in these other cards. In Commander, I actually kind of like this card. I don't know where I'd play it, because it does have the same problem where the front side's just not that good. Like, the front side does not excite me at all in Commander. But in Commander, you do have 3 opponents. The odds of someone maybe not having good blocks, so you can get in the hit and get the saga side, is higher than it is in Constructed. And then the backside is pretty good. You're getting a Sign-In Bud that's also making each of your opponents discard cards. And then you're getting that super barter in blood that hits all your opponents. So I do like it, but honestly, outside of Moon Mist shenanigans or double-faced card decks, I'm not really sure where I'd play it in Commander. So Jecht, cool design. The saga's really strong. I'm just not sure that the front side is strong enough to make it worth trying to flip into the saga. We also got one new Final Fantasy Through the Ages card in Winota Jonah of Voices. And this one, I'm actually curious what you think of this card. As a Magic player, when I see this art, it looks kind of unfinished. Like, it shouldn't actually be on a Magic card, but I'm curious, maybe as a Final Fantasy fan, it makes way more sense. I like a lot of the Through the Ages card, but this one, I don't know. It looks like a sketch that didn't quite get all the way completed to me, but I'm curious what y'all think. Let me know in the comments. Speaking of the Final Fantasy Through the Ages bonus sheet, we had a few other cards that slipped out. Dovin's Veto, Nature's Claim. These are the ones you're probably hoping to not open, because yeah, they're a little bit playable, but not especially valuable. On the other hand, Ristic Study is Stay With Me. I'm sure this card is going to be ridiculously expensive. Wizards has started aggressively reprinting Ristic Study. We got like the Enchanted Tales and Jumpstart there. It's all over the place the last few years, and the card's still so expensive because basically every blue commander deck wants it. So I expect this one probably going to be very expensive and one of the better opens from the entire sheet. As far as lower rarity cards, we got a couple of notable ones today, starting with Quistis Trepe, and I am sure I'm really butchering that name, but it's a 3-mana 2/2 legendary human wizard. It says when it enters, you can cast an instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast this spell, and if the spell would go to a graveyard, it goes to exile instead. So Quistis Trepe, it's essentially a Snapcaster at home, a Songcrafter Mage at home. The twist here is it hits any graveyard, which is a nice upside, being able to snag your opponent's spell, which I guess kind of makes it like a Halo Forager that's not as powerful because it's not a 3-mana 3/1 flyer, it's a 2/2 ground creature that's legendary, but still, it is cool that you can hit your opponent's graveyards. Not sure this card will actually see that much play outside of Commander. Halo Forager had a bit of hype when it was spoiled, and it essentially does the same thing, except it just has a better body, and no one really ended up playing that card competitively. I guess Quistis is mono blue, which maybe opens up some possibilities, but I think in most formats, you're probably still just going to play Snapcaster Mage, or Songcrafter Mage, or even Halo Forger, but in Commander, it's cool you can play it as your commander, and hitting any graveyard is a powerful effect. We also got a new fling effect in Self-Destruct. So Self-Destruct, 2-mana instant, says target creature you control deals X damage to any other target, and X damage to itself, where X is its power. So Self-Destruct, it's essentially a fling, except you might be able to keep your creature. Depending on your creature's power and its toughness, it's possible that you don't actually have to lose your creature, which is kind of nice, which I guess makes it like a pseudo Soulfire, which is similar to Fling, except you don't sacrifice your creature, but it's 1 more mana. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. I feel like Self-Destruct has uses. We've seen Fling effects be really good in the mouse deck in Standard with Callous Sellsword. As far as Standard's concerned, I'm not sure if it's worth switching Callous Sellsword to Self-Destruct. The upside is you can do the fling thing while being fully mono red, although I guess you could do that with Callous Sellsword too if you wanted to and just not play its creature side. So that is an upside. The downside is it is 1 additional mana, and if you think about the mice that you're flinging, their power and toughness typically symmetrical, so the odds that you're gonna like keep your Heartfire hero around not very high. Plus, you don't really want to keep your Heartfire hero around because it dying is a big part of the damage it deals. The other place that I think this card can show up is in some Commander decks. So Soulfire, Fling, not really staples in Commander, but they do see play in certain decks, especially decks where you can build one big Voltron threat, like Crush the Bloodbraided or Wolverine Best There Is. Being able to like grow this huge creature, kill one person by attacking, kill someone else with Self-Destruct, a really powerful way to close out the game. Also seems good in Fling decks like Briar and Stout Arm. So I think this card does certainly have uses, and it could show up in some Standard decks in the right situation. We also got a new blue uncommon that just might be a mono blue commander staple in Realm Sketching. So Realm Sketching, 4-mana sorcery, says create a token that's a copy of target artifact, creature, or most importantly, of target land. And it's being able to copy a land that has me really excited for this card. If we just want to copy artifacts or creatures, there's plenty of cards that can do that, Clever Impersonator and whatnot, but being able to copy a land is actually a pretty rare ability. I play copy land, the literal copy land, in a lot of my mono blue commander decks because I put really high value on being able to ramp in lands and not with artifacts, because artifacts get blown up by Vandal Blasts and Farewells and so forth. So I'm willing to pay more mana to be able to ramp in land form than ramp in artifact form, and I think Realm Sketching might be the new best mono blue ramp spell. I know it's 4 mana, but you get to copy any land and you get the upside of hitting artifacts or creatures when the situation calls for it. And the problem with copy land is it's still an enchantment on the battlefield, which means it can still get swept up by a Farewell or whatever. Realm Sketching does not have this problem. It's just 4 mana, copy a land, it's a land for the rest of the game, and you get a huge amount of upside with this because you can copy any land, which means if if your opponent plays a Nykthos, you can copy their Nykthos. Maybe they have a Cabal Coffers and there's an Urborg out. You can copy the Coffers or a Lotus Field. Well, I guess Lotus Field, you'd have to control it since it has hexproof, but still, you can copy really powerful utility lands. So I think Realm Sketching, if I'm playing a mono blue commander deck, I'm playing this in my deck pretty much 100% of the time moving forward. The card seems really, really good. Plus, you get really fun shenanigans where you can like turn a land into a token and then copy it with Caretaker's Talent or double it up with a Doubling Season or whatever, which seems super, super fun. We also got, speaking of lands, a new land in Capital City. So Capital City, it's a town. It makes a generic mana, or you can pay one and tap it to make a mana of any color, and then it has cycling of 2. So Capital City, I think this really depends on, do we get payoffs for towns? We still haven't really seen good payoffs. There's not like a Maze's End for towns yet. The card itself, we've seen a bunch of versions of this effect, Conduit Pylons, Crystal Grotto, Hidden Grotto. Traditionally, they don't really see play. It turns out that paying 1 mana to make a mana of any color, not really worth it. You're kind of spending 2 mana to make a single mana, so usually not worth it, but this card does have cycling, which is a meaningful upside. It only cycles for 2, so if we get enough town payoffs and there's some sort of like 5-color town deck, I could see Capital City definitely being a part of it, but otherwise, probably not quite going to make it. Of course, also a bit of draft chat that you can check out over at MTGPreviews.com. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our daily Final Fantasy spoilers for today. So, kind of a light day today. I'm sure there'll be more tomorrow, but let me know what you think about the cards from the day. What do you think about the Winota, the art on that one? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more Final Fantasy spoilers. So until then, have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon. Looking for even more magic, we can find yesterday's spoiler video here, or maybe the Against the Odds, where we tried to build the most ridiculous Urborg Scavengers possible in Standard.